Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Here is just one reason why some people decide to vote Democrat. Because they are too irresponsible to own a gun, and they know that their local police are all that they need to protect them from murderers and thieves. They are also very thankful that they have a 911 service that gets police to your home in order to identify your body after a home invasion. And that's more truth than fiction. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America on a Tuesday, January 28th. Zeb at the ranch. Cloudy again, foggy, my goodness sakes. Thank you very much. The lovely Kate Smith and God Bless America. Good morning. I'm Zeb Bell on Zeb at the Ranch. Every day feeling a little bit better, and we want to say thank you to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley with I Love My Pillow. Memory foam pillows, absolutely fantabulous. And also, let's not forget Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them 734-6969. And a lot of people don't know this, but back 15, 20 years ago, the Wonder Woman TV series was kind of centered around the life and times of this young lady up at Elk River, Idaho. Here's Gina.
And I flew in on my invisible jet and nobody knew.
Oh, yeah. We tried to keep it a secret, but it's those autograph seekers that will get you.
You know, for the past couple of years, except for last year, for Halloween, I've been Wonder Woman. And
really?
Honestly, I do a dead-on Wonder Woman.
I'll bet you do. You do look like the character.
Yeah, Linda Carter.
Yeah.
Linda
Carter.
Linda Carter.
Yeah.
The only thing I need, honestly, are the bracelets, and I need the lasso of truth.
And the money.
And the money. The money would be
money.
Great.
Yeah.
It would be great, yes.
Yep, yeah, Wonder Woman. Yeah, those were the good old days, were they not? When you went out and fought crime and made sure that evil did not prevail.
Amen.
Oh, my. Do we have a Pledge of Allegiance person?
We do. We have Rotten on for the pledge and Mr. Michael Rogers on for the weather.
Very good. Good morning, Rotten. How are you?
I'm rottener than rotten and rotten.
All right, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, how's your lovely, very quiet, shy wife this morning?
You talking about my wife?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. Well, you use those kind of words.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Tell her I said hello, would you please?
I'll do it.
All right, God bless you. Have a good day. Thank you. Oh, my. Let's go to the weather right now with the world's best weatherman. Ladies and gentlemen, MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Go ahead.
Okay. Morning, everybody. 22 in Wichita right now. Our weather pattern is going to take us through a situation where we've been in an inversion for about the last 7 days. We're going to break out of it. We're going to start to see some weather action. So, that being said, look for snow and freezing rain that's going to be taking place starting tomorrow. It's going to be cloudy today, and you're going to see the temperature is going to be on the cool side, 36 for the high. Then as you get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, depending upon the temperatures and depending upon the precipitation is going to be hitting the ground. But the bottom line is by the time you get to the weekend, you're going to get a surge of cold air coming in from the north, and your temperature is going to be in the mid-30s right through Monday. So right now, that inversion that's been keeping everything stagnant for the last 7 days is going to be breaking down as of tomorrow. We're going to start to see some weather action through the weekend, and we're going to see some cold temperatures as we start at the beginning of next week. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
There's my buddy, MichaelRogersWeather.com. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Don't forget SafeLink Internet. Oh, my, Idaho's #1 choice for wireless high-speed Internet. Look no further. Stop in your tracks and call them right now at 677-8000. That's the number, 677-8000. You talk to the crew and tell them I told you to call because it's absolutely the best. Their service is impeccable. They are the best. Call them today, please. We've been on their program for about 7 or 8 years now, and absolutely the best. SafeLink Internet. You call them, 677-8000. By the way, too, when I was really traveling hard, which I'm never going to do that again, I'm done traveling as hard as I used to. Back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, I mean, gone 200 and some plus days a year. I can't do that anymore. And every time I come home, naturally, the first place I go is to the cleaners, and Daryl's Cleaners is the best. Everywhere I've been in the United States, Canada, the world, literally, they're the best. So please, take it from me. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Take care of all your stains, all your rumply clumplies, everything you want to look brand spanking new, they can do the job. Daryl's Cleaners in Burley, the absolute best. You know, folks, let's talk just for a few minutes, if we would, and I'd like your input on that. Oh, by the way, I've got a note here. A lady by the name of Khalees Hart sent me this, and the question is asked, are you tired, stressed, struggling with your weight? Well, maybe you've heard of Velocity and Power Blend, a new product. Well, I'll tell you what, they're going to have a meeting on this, and I believe, according to the note I have here, and I'll stand corrected, the meeting is going to be tonight, January 28th, at Canyon Crest in Twin Falls, okay? And find out more about how you can feel better. That's what life's all about, feeling better, and check it out. And I wish I had a telephone number right here in front of me to have you call for more information, but I'll try to get some more of that and put that out for you. I have a question for you this morning. This is no longer politics of having differences of opinion, difference on certain issues where you can stand up and debate the issues and put your best foot forward, and the better person, male or female, running for a particular office that gets its point across normally will get the votes and get the job. What's happening in the state of Texas is absolutely pathetic. This isn't politics. It's smeared with hate. And it's a win at any cost. And so far, until something proves these statements that I'm going to make wrong, it's the liberal left and the Democrats that absolutely should be so ashamed of themselves, they shouldn't even be able to want to peek out from underneath the covers. Cover your face in shame. The Texas governor's race between Democratic contender Wendy Davis and Republican Greg Abbott is, I think, one of the worst campaigns that I have ever heard of or seen or read about in my life. And I'm 66 years old and been around the horn a couple of times. It is absolute ugliness. And 99.9% of this ugliness stems from the challenger, this Wendy Davis, the Democrat. She has been proven to be a liar. She has been proven to be a storyteller. She's made up facts, and I put that in quotation marks, that are untrue and only use those to enhance her life's story. The more I study this woman, and by the way, being the governor of Texas is a big deal. It's a big deal. The more I study this woman, the more I see a person that used people for her own personal gain and then dumped whatever was left of those people by the wayside after they had contributed to her all she could take. And her staff that she has that are helping her run for the governorship are some of the worst low-life people that I've ever heard about in my life. Now, if you haven't heard about what happened, Greg Abbott, the challenger on the Republican side for the governorship, is in a wheelchair. He has basically a broken spine when he was 26 years of age, and he was jogging and a tree literally fell on him, and he's been physically challenged in a wheelchair ever since. Well, now the staff the other day made up a kind of a little video where they were saying, well, he's not that good a speaker, ha, ha, ha. He's not that very good with what he does, ha, ha, ha. And he's in a wheelchair, ha, ha, ha. My question goes out to you and everybody in the audience. How could any person running for office stoop to the lowness of a rattlesnake to make fun and mock somebody that is trying to make a living, trying to support their family, trying to run for a public office, and is in a wheelchair? Now, they've even resorted to one step lower on the ladder when you thought they couldn't go any lower. Now, these liberal mice are resorting to questioning whether or not Greg Abbott needs the wheelchair at all, and they're planting thoughts in the voters' minds saying that his use of a wheelchair is nothing more than a ploy for sympathy and to get votes. I sit here and I'm just shaking my head. I don't even know what to say. This hatred, this idiocy from the liberal left is so unconscionably repugnant. I don't even know what to say. Now, I can say this. I also have fallen into the left and their hatred in such a regard. About 12 years ago, and I'm not going to elaborate on the whole story in its entirety, I was running for public office, and someone made up a video that supposedly showed me marching in a Ku Klux Klan parade with the garb and all the garbage and everything else connected to the Klan. And they said that was me. And the hurtfulness, the hatefulness, and the absolute shame that these people should be heaped upon themselves for doing all these lies is so repugnant, I'm almost out of words here this morning. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Zeb?
Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Okay, I've been watching that, and you know what? That woman has used more people than you can shake a stick at to, further her neck. She's nothing but a cheapie. And then her people come out and say, well, how did he father a son or a baby?
Yeah.
Well, all you have to do is take sperm from a man with a needle and inject it in the wife, and you got it.
I'm not even going to get into that aspect of it, because I think you'll agree with me that the liberal left, and quite frankly the Democratic Party, should be so ashamed of themselves in this personal regard, this story about Greg Abbott, that, and everybody says, well, sometimes you adhere to violence on your program. You know what? In a case like this, if that were me in that wheelchair that Greg Abbott's in, it wouldn't be above me at all to just poke somebody in the nose for what they've done to him.
I know it. And then to say, like her telling, stand up for Greg.
No, stand up for Wendy.
Yeah, you bet. Stand up.
Yeah.
Well, that's like old Joe Biden tell that paralytic guy, well, stand up, man, and take a bow.
Yeah. The verbiage that's come out of the campaign from Wendy Davis, stand up for Wendy and walk a mile in Wendy's shoes, how can you be a campaign manager and be so insensitive and, quite frankly, that doggone dumb?
It's real easy for the Republicans or the Democrats and them liberals, because you still got guys like L.C. Hastings, a convicted felon. He's still running. He's still in office. They don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
But boy, you let a Republican stuff out of line, and you had it back.
Well, I'm just very offended that people stoop as low as they do, and I know that there's a lot of stories that I could relate on a personal note of where I've had some of these hate-filled people with the brain capacity of a box of rocks come after me. But in this case, with Greg Abbott in a wheelchair and now questioning and planting a seed with the voters to say, oh, well, now he really may not be a paraplegic. Perhaps he's just using it as a ploy to get sympathy and votes. How low can you be?
Well, that's just about as low as you can go.
All right, Al. God bless you, man. Good to hear from you. Thank you. I'd like to hear others comment on this morning. You know, that's not politics. That's not politics. Those vermin that do that kind of planting seeds of questioning whether or not a person is really hurt, questioning whether or not he really needs the wheelchair, and then coming out with all these other attitudes against him. Well, he's not a very good speaker. Ha, ha, ha. I don't like his ideology. Ha, ha. Oh, and by the way, he's in a wheelchair. Ha, ha, ha. How can you stoop that low? Please call me. Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Oh, my goodness sakes. Go on over and have a cup of coffee this morning. Visit with your friends. They're all there. I mean, they're probably out fueling up, and then they go inside, have a cup of coffee, and walk around the store. Don't forget they got all the dog and kitty cat food. They got feed for all your livestock. They've got all the smart lick tubs and the cattle lick blocks. They've got it all. And you need clothing? They've got clothing, jackets, vests. You betcha. Everything you need is right there at Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. These are good people. Steve and the rest of the crew serving you at Valley Wide Home and Ranch. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. You know, anybody that's ever had to use a wheelchair or a walker or crutches will tell you it's not fun and it's not easy. And I can't imagine anybody even trying to use them that didn't absolutely need them.
Jerry, the vileness and the hatred that a person has to have for other human beings to resort to the fact that says something like, well, he doesn't really need the wheelchair, he's just using it as a political ploy. You've got to walk up on a rock to kick a snake in the butt. That's how low a human being you'd have to be.
Well, I agree with you. And, you know, she don't sound like a very reputable person to start with.
She's had a lot of problems.
Several things uncovered about her that isn't very good.
Yes, she's had a lot of problems.
I let her stand on her own record.
I don't think she's going to be a source to be reckoned with. I haven't seen the latest polls. The latest poll I saw in the popularity polls was like she was still behind like 14 or 15%. And quite frankly, with people and staffers working for her like this, she shouldn't be getting even more than 2% of the vote. And that would be 2% because people sometimes don't even know who they're voting for. She's a pretty face for the Democrats, and a lot of the Democrats were going to really try to issue her a red carpet treatment from beyond the governorship if she wins it in Texas, but she is a liar and a storyteller, and that has been proven true.
Well, and she'd probably make a horrible governor on top of it.
Absolutely.
She's probably better off to stay with her statements and stuff and get beat real good, and Texas will be far better off.
I agree with you.
Out of your hair. Have a wonderful day. May the Lord bless.
God bless you, Jerry. Thank you very much. But how do you sink that low? You know, I've got broad shoulders, and there are those out in the audience over the years, the many, many years that I've been involved in broadcasting and other events. They've said some pretty hateful things. I've got some pretty hateful emails. I've had some pretty hateful letters, and I just dismiss those because, quite frankly, I don't give any credence to people that have an IQ of a bicycle spoke. But in this case, they've gone as a committee, working for Wendy Davis's campaign, to sit down and develop a video and mock him and laugh at him and make fun of him because he's in a wheelchair. How do you get that low? Really? How? Calls are welcome. Appreciate it. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Heat lamps, extension cords, air filters for your furnace so you get all the good warm heat on your toesies. They've got all your electrical needs. I'll tell you, all your fuses, everything. Over 57 years in business serving you, my friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Open 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday till 5:30, where they always provide warm winters and cool summers. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Why should that gal in Texas be any different than our president?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities there as to what's going on. I agree with you. I agree.
I mean, basically, the liberals, their philosophy is the end justifies the means. If they get what they want, it doesn't matter how they go about to get it, just as long as they get it.
You know, the end justifies the means. You know, you're saying some words right there this morning that I certainly hope and pray, and don't be offended by this.
No.
I hope you are so wrong, it's laughable. But you're not going to be. You're not going to be wrong. This president is going to, and he's already said this as a bully, I have a pen and I have a phone, and might I interject at that point every time I hear it on the news, I always come back and tell my wife, yeah, and I got a great place for him to put him. But anyhow, this man scares me because his end is going to justify his liberal means.
Exactly. He doesn't give a hoot about America or the people in America. The only thing he cares about is his agenda and his just things to do, you know, like he wants it done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll spend $10 million on a vacation and laughing at us all the way.
But, you know, Doug, seriously, you know people, maybe there are people in your family that have had some tough physical problems and need assistance, whether it's a walker, wheelchair, pair of crutches, whatever. Can you imagine your response to anyone out in the public? Should they make fun of them? Should they question whether their need is necessary? Mock them in a video? You know, you have to be, honestly, the lowest form of humanity on the food chain to do something so stupid.
Well, you got to have a mentality of a child.
No, there's children that are much more educated than that.
Well, kids in grade school, they can be awfully mean, you know, because they can say things and they can pick on people that are less fortunate. And unfortunately, I was guilty when I was in school, you know. But when you grow up a little bit, you mature, and apparently these folks aren't maturing.
Well, it's not a maturation process with these people. It's a win at all costs, and the devil be damned, and hurt the other opponent as much as you can. If he's bleeding a little bit, cut another vein and let him bleed some more.
Exactly, and that's exactly what they'll do. It's evil. It's not justified. It's very evil.
That's right. Hey, God bless you, and thanks for your call this morning. I appreciate it.
You too.
Thank you, sir. You bet. Yeah, this is beyond the pale to me. I guess maybe I'm more sensitive to it for Mr. Abbott than ever. Since my surgery, I've been in and out of a wheelchair. I hate wheelchairs, let me tell you. I'm a poor driver anyway. It's a good thing Al didn't see what I did the other night. But anyhow, you know, anyone that's confined to a wheelchair, I'm lucky. God has blessed me because I'm healing up and I'm going to get back into my normal regimen of just relying on crutches before too long, which really doesn't bother me at all. Never has. And I'm going to get rid of the walker and get rid of the wheelchair in the not too distant future. But for people that can't and people that need that, and then to be hurt, really, really hurt by other people for their political gain to question and demonize whether or not that person needs that vehicle, that's detestable. Travel Lube Supply, 1050 West 203 south of Hebron. The number to call, 438-8730. They've got all your filters. They've got all your tools. They've got all your nuts and bolts and welding rods. They've got everything you need. I'm talking everything. Jim prides himself on having everything you need, and they deliver the goods. 438-8730. Travel Lube Supply. Don't waste a minute. You get on the phone, give them a call. They can serve you, and they got the Bubba ropes, too. Don't forget it. Travel Lube Supply. Running a minute late. We'll take some more calls in just a minute, but right now, here's the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly. House and Senate agriculture leaders on Monday were wrapping up a deal on a massive farm bill that has been more than 2 years in the making. The bill will cost more than $900 billion over 10 years for farm programs and food stamps. The House plans to vote on the bill Wednesday morning, with the Senate to follow. Among the provisions included in the legislation are a plan that will raise target prices for grain with payments made on base acres, a new dairy program without a supply management provision, and no changes to country of origin labeling for red meat or to the Grain Inspection Packers and Stockyards Act. Speaker John Boehner has promised to help shepherd the bill through the House. For the Capital Press Ag Minute, this is Brandon Tenner.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and capitalpress.com.
Hey, by the way, do you know where we're going to be on Thursday this week at 11:30? You figured it out. We're going to be at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley for our all-time first Zeb's Lunch Bunch at Denny's Restaurant. You don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss it. It's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. You can stop in anytime, all the time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And don't forget, for senior citizens, show your AARP card. Get 15% off your bill. Great food, great service at Denny's Restaurant in Burley. We'll see you at 11:30 this Thursday for Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, I give the people of Texas a lot of brain power. But, you know, if they have the mindset of anything, all they have to do is look at him. When you sit in a wheelchair for any length of time, you lose your muscle tone, your legs get smaller. You know, they can tell that he has been in there a long time. What's the matter with these people?
Well, there's a concentrated effort, Helen. There is a concentrated effort by the Democratic Party to want to change Texas from a red state to a turning purple, eventually to turn blue. And if their best shot is a liar, a fraud, and a charlatan, and there's other words I'd like to use about this woman, Wendy Davis, then they're in deep trouble, which doesn't bother me at all. They've got a shovel, they're digging a big hole, and they keep on digging. But to mock and make fun of somebody in a wheelchair, all I can say is God help them.
They need all the help that they can get. So anyway, you have a good day.
I will, my dear. Thank you so much. Appreciate your call. Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. There's another issue that's not even being talked about, but it's very important that everybody get hold of Simpson. Boehner's pushing for an amnesty program, and we're not hearing anything about it on the national news, of course, but apparently tomorrow he's taking some of the top Republicans, and of course Simpson, having the seniority he does, I imagine he'll probably be among the group. He's going to give them a propaganda deal at some kind of retreat, and we need to get on the phone and talk to Simpson's office, and if you have listeners in other parts of the states, they need to be contacting the representative to stop this amnesty nonsense, as Frosty so well aptly puts it every Monday on your program. But this little retreat deal, it's just gonna be a big propaganda deal as to why we need that. Also, the Chamber of Commerce, is pushing for amnesty, and they're also coming out against all Tea Party candidates. And Simpson's gonna get a tremendous amount of money from the National Chamber of Commerce, probably more than his opponent Brian Smith will be able to raise. They want to do away with all Tea Party candidates and make sure that progressive Republicans stay in office.
All right, now, I let you go there for quite a while. Now, here I'm going to interrupt you. There's another issue, too, and I'm not going to have I got other callers I need to get in also, but I want you to respond to this, and I want a short answer. I also believe that with the stroke of a pen, Obama is going to include the national monument status, and it's going to include the White Clouds issue, and I absolutely am adamantly opposed to that. I make no bones about it. You know where I stand on that. I don't think we need any more wilderness. We don't need any more monument status, and we certainly don't need that happening again here in the state of Idaho, and I blame Mike Simpson for a lot of what's happening.
Absolutely. Simpson's been pushing this, and of course, folks, just remember, he's the one that signed onto this new deficit budget that included full funding for Obamacare, so if you're not getting your insurance, or if it's doubled like many of us, our premiums, with the new year here, then remember Simpson, because he's the one that fully funded it. We need to have our state legislature nullify it. It can be done, even though Wasden has come out and said we can't do it. It can be done, but he's been fed a line of baloney, too, and so we need to camp on our representatives to nullify Obamacare along the way, too.
All right.
So, anyway, folks, we got a lot of issues out there, this amnesty thing and all the stuff that's going out there. They're just trying to create a dictatorship, and they don't want any kind of conservative constitutionalists to be in office, and so we need to support people like Brian Smith and get Simpson out of there.
All right. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate your call. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, have a great day.
You betcha.
Bye.
God bless. Calls are welcome, 436-2244-1866-927-4587. You know, I hear the microphone.
I just wanted to weigh in on this whole Wendy Davis thing.
I kind of figured you did, and
so I did just a brief little reading because I hadn't heard anything about this. So I just did a brief little reading on this, and here's my stance. Apparently, from what I've read, she has not been truthful under oath. She's lied about her own past history, and as far as the liberal left is concerned, who always points the finger when they're saying, "Oh, well, you're racist"? Who's always the one that points the finger?
It's always them. And I can say that with a great big emphasis because they did it to me 6 years ago, and you were involved as one of the interrogators of me.
Yep. And which side is it always that's like, oh, well, you're being discriminatory.
Yep.
It's always the liberal left. So what now? The liberal left is coming back and doing the same thing that they abhor the other parties to do?
I just don't understand how you can stoop so low. Here you go. Wendy Davis. She was a troubled youth, had some children out of wedlock, and I'm going to give a synopsis. I'm not going to give a point-by-point case here. And you know what she looks like to me? She's an attractive woman. And for those gals out in the audience this morning that may be offended by this, that's your problem, not mine. I honestly think she looked for, found, utilized, and built a sugar daddy for her gain and dumped him at the end of the deal with her education and said, "Goodbye, Charlie. Thanks for the money, but it's adios."
Yep. Once he made her final tuition payment for Harvard, she divorced him.
That's exactly right.
It took the two kids. According to a report that I read, that she values her race in the political sphere more than she does her own children. But that being said, I don't know. But if you go back and you look at her past history, it doesn't seem like she's on the up and up, and she's only garnered this national spotlight because of her fight against women's rights and the abortion laws in Texas. That's where she gained most of her notoriety. So a lot of her campaign funds aren't even coming from the state of Texas. They're coming from liberals from outside of the state of Texas.
And here's another point that needs to be brought up here this morning is... Oh, boy. Now you got me really upset.
Okay. All right.
Last weekend, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee spoke the truth about the Democrats and this ridiculous attitude that there's a Republican war on women. He spoke the truth, and the liberal left, with some of their absolute Nazi activities and mindsets, came out against former Governor Huckabee, denounced him, and they went on every newscast they could find that was of liberal bent and absolutely chastised him. And this Wendy Davis is the same ilk. She is all the Republicans. It's a war on women. Oh, it's poor me. It's look what I did. I raised raise my kids. I was a single mom. No! She is a fraud and a liar.
It's not that, it's not, in her specific case, it's not a war on women. It's war on stupidity. It is war on not being able to tell the truth. If this woman wins in office, I will be shocked, because all of the stuff that, there's plenty of dirt out there, and her running mate, or her opposition, he's not out there trying to dig up dirt. He's trying to run an honest campaign on the platform that he believes in. She's just out there trying to dig up dirt. That's what she's doing.
She has turned down in recent days some interviews with some of the more conservative inquirees, if you will. Mm-hmm. And he was on this morning early, and I caught a little bit of his being questioned. And I thought he did it with some class, some really good class. They were very direct and asked about why they would stoop as low as to make a video and mock him being in a wheelchair, and then to get more mileage over that, come out and say that he doesn't really need the wheelchair, that it's nothing more than a ploy for sympathy and votes. And he just basically looked at the camera and he said, "For those that question the integrity of where I sit, you have your right to feel that way, but you also have the right to find out the truth." Yeah. And that is the problem with the voters today. Voters today don't put enough time and effort into arming themselves with the facts, but they're led by the nose by stupid liberals that want nothing more than a case for disaster.
If you look at him in the pictures where he's sitting in the wheelchair, you can tell that he pretty much has no legs.
Yes.
His legs have atrophied to the point where the man can't walk. So it's right there on picture. People, look at the pictures, and if you understand the physiological aspect of your body and what happens when you don't use certain limbs, they atrophy. His legs apparently, and I just saw it. One photo, and you can tell.
Absolutely.
This guy it's not his fault that he is wheelchair bound. So why make that a crutch against him and his, and pardon my verbiage on that, but
no, there's no pardoning. You were being honest about it. They're using it.
They are using it against him.
They're using it against him. And this is the thing that bothers me. Here's the campaign manager for Wendy Davis. Can you honestly look me in the eye, anybody, and tell me that when they came out recently with this slogan, walk a mile in Wendy's shoes, or stand up for Wendy, that wasn't a slam against the opposition?
Oh, it absolutely was. Absolutely was. And honestly, I would never want to walk a mile in Wendy's shoes. She's going to have to walk a mile in mine, okay?
Yeah. And you, of all people, I want to be real careful how I word this. Sure. You, of all people, are a single mom, basically under the same, what could have been circumstances as what she had.
Yep.
But you didn't go out and find your sugar daddy to basically milk the billfold for everything you could shake out of it and then leave somebody high and dry. You're working as a single mom, doing all you can to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and do things your way. God bless you. And when I look at somebody like this Wendy Davis, and she's a very attractive woman, but they're utilizing that as a personality for the Democratic Party. And she's nothing more than a liar and a storyteller.
You can't use good looks to win a political
Bingo.
I'm sorry. I want to know what's inside somebody's brain and what's inside somebody's heart. I want to know their ethics, and if they can actually stand behind those ethics, that is the person that I'm going to vote for. I don't care what they look like.
But you can't tell me, and nobody's going to tell me this, that your committee that puts together a video, and there is frames of the different staff workers giggling as they go through the different points of interest. He's not a very good speaker. His ideology on this. And at the end, also, he's in a wheelchair, as if to signify that by being in a wheelchair, he's not capable of being the governor of Texas. You're not anybody going to tell me that Wendy Davis didn't have at any juncture the right to say, throw that video away, we will not run that.
Had I been in her shoes, that's exactly what I would have
Bingo.
done. The first couple of clips, I would have said, whoa, 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 whoa. this is not my ethics, this is not my platform, and we're not going to run the
ethics
way.
Ethics?
Well, yeah, some people have to have ethics. I actually happen to have ethics, but apparently some political people don't.
Boy, I tell you, it's hard to find anything ethical about what that committee has done. And, you know, like I said earlier, we're not talking about the state of Rhode Island. We're not talking about the state of Pennsylvania. We're not talking about the state of Arizona. We're talking about a state that carries a lot of clout politically every time there's an election. Texas is big, and it carries a lot of weight. And for this person to possibly be the governor of Texas with all of that it would employ to her as power, good Lord help us all.
I'm hoping that the people of Texas wake up and they realize exactly what's going on, because they are being suckered, and sure, she might look pretty on camera. Good for her, but look and dig deeper than that.
Amen. I got to do some weather.
What you do?
Calls welcome in just a few minutes. Don't forget Quali's Electronics. You know, now I went early to Quali's Electronics. Walked in the door, sat in one of the chairs, and I just watched television. Yeah, I looked at, 20 or 30 at the same time going on. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at over here. Holy cow, look at the size of that screen. Look at the clarity over here. And I picked one out, and I bought it, and I got it home. They put it in my home. They installed it. Their service is absolutely impeccable. Quali's Electronics. They say get ready for Super Sunday with the Super Bowl coming up. You better get in there today. I mean, they've got all the different sizes, and they've got money savings on every one of their television sets. What are you waiting for? The Super Bowl. You need to treat yourself. Oh, you're going to love it. Please stop in. 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls, or give Bruce and Steve and the whole crew a call at 733-4910. Quali's Electronics. Super Savings Events. Here's Michael Rogers weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Cloudy for today, rain for tomorrow. It's going to be tricky with the rain because of the temperature. So what I'm talking about, basically, if it starts raining and the temperature's like 34, 32, that could be some snow. So right now, with our daytime temperatures being in the 40s and getting there, looks like it's going to be pretty much rain. But all that's going to be taking place for tomorrow. So all these clouds you see for today, you're going to get it set up for some weather action tomorrow, and you'll come out of it day after tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
The best. MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you this hour by Quali's Electronics Super Savings Event for Super Bowl Sunday. Get in there and check out all the TVs at 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Tonight is the big night. Now, I know a lot of you are probably sitting there going, oh, gee, Herman, the president's going to be on television tonight, and it's going to mess up our seeing American Idol and all our other good programs. This is pretty important, folks. The State of the Union. More so, I think, than ever before. Starting tomorrow morning, I honestly believe this president, with his basically threat of my pen and my phone, will be in action, doing all he can to limit our freedoms, take more money from us, and worst of all, because I don't trust this man, I don't like this man, and I can't stand his ideology. Worst of all, I think he's going to be, in the next short period of time, out to do all he can to damage our Constitution. I know for a fact that he's already going to sign an executive order that is going to give a new high for minimum wage earners that work for the federal government, federal contract workers, janitors, cleaning staff, welcoming committees, and that type of thing. And he's going to raise their wages to $10.10 an hour. $10.10 an hour. You say, okay, but that's for federal employees. But listen, you can see behind that tree, there's going to be, in a short period of time, a big push to raise the minimum wage way up to that for everybody. You can bet on it. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, them.
Yes.
Yeah, this woman. I agree with everything you said about this woman, but I think we need to start at the top. I just read a book called George Washington's Secret Six.
Yes.
And he didn't waste any time with treasonous people. When they caught them, they had a trial. If they were found guilty, they were hung within 2 or 3 days. We have treasonous people at the head of our country right now, and they should be charged with treason. Our president's one of them, Hillary Clinton, and that other big military guy that retired.
Well, you could also add to the list Eric Holder. You could add his name to the fray also.
Absolutely. He's treasonous also. Yeah. Those people all need to be charged with treason, and if found guilty, they should be... The full extent of the law should take place, and they should all be hung.
I agree. You're not going to get an argument out of me, sir. Thank you very much for your input. God bless you for your call. And also, that's an excellent book. I need to get a copy of that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's a great book.
Thank you. You know, the man just brought up a very interesting point. Treason. Treason. Treason against the United States. And to define treason... and look at what's happening with the anti-American activities being promoted by various members, like that gentleman just said, our president on down. It seems like there's a laxity of caring or pursuing treasonous activities against our government or trying to shatter the goals and ideals of our Constitution. I'll give you an example. Here's my thinking. Go ahead and call me bigoted if you want to. I don't care. Go ahead. Throw your names. But you see, when we have so many problems right now with Muslims and Islam in general, and the hatred from them in general towards us, the infidels, I find it just a little tough to sit back and accept the fact that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama could appoint Muslim Brotherhood members to various cabinet posts in our government, some very high government posts. I'd really like to know a whole lot more about these people. And we've had people question as to why they were appointed. We've had certain individuals question who they are and what they represent. And then, of course, our own illustrious Mike Simpson sent a letter and said, "How dare you? That sounds like McCarthyism." No, Mike, I wished you were on the program right now, because I would tell you anytime you want to call me. I'm not going to call you. You call me. I will tell you to your face, you can call me anything you want, but I'm being very cautious because today, I don't think we can trust anybody. I don't think that we can open the door and say, "Come on in, the water's fine, swim in our pool." We don't know who is who and what they represent. Caution? You bet you believe it. Very cautious. I don't trust the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't trust these appointments. And I think the naivete of some of our representatives, i.e. Mike Simpson, needs to be questioned. Let's not forget our dear friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the very best of all your traction tires. You heard we might be getting some rain, we might be getting some snow, we might be getting some ice. Oh boy, you're going to need your winter traction tires, and they've got all the different tread designs. They've got them pinned for studs. They've got them all for you, for your cars, your SUVs, your pickups. You just be sure and get on in to any one of the 7 locations, and they will take care of you. Now, along with that, they've got the best in brake service, and boy, I can really tell you that. Best in brake service. And credit is easy. They've got 4 different payment plans available on any product or service at Les Schwab. Just check it out today, okay? Get in there and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, along with the Twist family over in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy, the Seahawk fan, on Overland and Burley, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Okay, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Tonight's the big night. I believe here it will be broadcast starting at 7 o'clock. You'll get a lot of pre-State of the Union prognostications and everything else. I just honestly believe that tonight, the speech and what is going to be said, what he is going to do with or without Congress for the next 3 years, the tone will be set tonight in the State of the Union message. Coming up next hour, we're going to be talking to, I know for sure Doug Pickett's going to be calling in. We're going to be talking about this gateway transmission line battle and what it does to absolutely dissolve and cast asunder private property rights. We're going to be talking to him and possibly also Brent Stoker. Then at 9:30, very interesting conversation with Casey Given calling in regarding Common Core education. 10:06, we've got my buddy Dr. History. And then at 10:30 this morning, a gentleman that absolutely is the Director of Communications for the Institute of Energy Research, and that's Ben Cole. And we're going to be talking about Obama and tonight's State of the Union message and Obama's want to transform American energy. What does all that mean? Well, he's going to be talking to us about that at 10:30 this morning. Let's see what else have I got to remind you of real quick. I think I've covered everything. I got the public service announcements out of the way for this morning, and we're going to be taking care of those periodically. If you have anything that you want me to announce, any meetings coming up or whatever, just give us a call or send them to zebuttheranch@hotmail.com. And don't forget that this Thursday, day after tomorrow, we'll be at Denny's Restaurant for the first Big Zeb's Lunch Bunch right there at Denny's. Don't miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you back here in 6. Don't go away.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers. For Michael Rogers.
Well, hello, Michael Rogers. Scared me there for a minute. I thought, doggone it, I'm paying for this show, but he took over.
My bad.
Don't worry about it, for heaven's sake. It did kind of stun me, I think you might say.
Yeah, I figured it'd wake you up right there.
I thought, well, when he said, hello, I'm Michael Rogers, I thought, well, hello, I'm Zeb Bell. Nice to meet you. I didn't know you bought it out. Okay,
here we go.
Welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And then also, don't forget, we've got some great advertisers, too. And that, of course, would be Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More with Brent and the crew. And I Love My Pillow, the memory foam pillows. They've got it all for you over there at Lee's Furniture. And our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always the Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always that Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services.
Oh, man, you know what I need to do? When I get back on my feet again, 100%, I need to get a dumpster, and I need to just park it right out in front of my great big tack shed and just start pitching and throwing and heaving and picking up and throwing again. I got a bunch of cleaning to do. They've got dumpsters in various sizes, and once they're full, just give them a call. They'll come get them at Western Waste Services, serving you. That's right, getting rid of your garbage. And don't forget, too, they've got all the porta potties for the special events. Oh, yes, give them a call, 734-6969. Western Waste Services, serving you. Another great business that I want to highlight a little bit this morning, of course, would be my dear friend Joel Heward, owner-manager, along with his staff at Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. You know, it's a really difficult time when there's the passing of a loved one and you've got such a short span of time to take care of all the dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's for a person's life. And let them help. They always work with you on upholding the highest ethics ethical standards with unquestioned integrity, and they served your loved ones the way you want them served. Please, Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, 436-5636. Call them today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to have, I know Doug Pickett's on the line. Doug, are you there? Good morning to you.
Yes. Good morning, Zeb. How are you doing?
And what about Mr. Brent Stoker? Is he there with you also?
Unfortunately, he's out of town.
Oh, well then,
join us this morning.
You're gonna fly the plane all by yourself.
It looks like it, yeah.
Well, you're no stranger to public speaking, and you're doing a wonderful job. But, Doug, bring us up to speed on this Gateway West battle for transmission lines crossing prime farmland, especially in Cassia County. What's happening?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Zeb. It's good to visit with you again. And as we all have understood, this is a process, and most people are aware of this 1,500-mile power line that's proposed to transmit green energy from Wyoming to the west coast that has targeted our area to bring this the largest power line that is constructed anywhere through our county, and specifically through some really prime agriculture that a lot of folks would like to see preserved for that purpose. We're right in the middle of probably an 8 to 10 year process. We're 5 years into this, and the BLM is working to finalize their approval of the proposed route, which would put that power line coming right through an area in the prime ag region of our county at about 950 south, east to west. This power line, as most people are aware, is a 300-foot wide easement that will impact land use anywhere in that area and beyond. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I guess I'd like to kind of talk about it from a little different light today, Zeb, if that's all right.
No, absolutely. Let me ask you one question, though, Doug, before you get started. Okay. Is there a benefit? Is there any economic or financial benefit to you, the landowners, or the county, or anybody else to have this gateway transmission come in and tear everything up?
Well, the law allows for landowners to negotiate individually with the utility, and it's possible to work together if groups can be formed. But as a sole landowner, whoever that may be, a homeowner, whatever the case, to stand up against the utility with the depth and gravity of Idaho Power is pretty menacing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you said you had a different angle or a different twist to the story. Go ahead. Now, I won't interrupt you again. I'll wait till you're finished so I can ask some more questions.
No problem. Thanks, Ed. Well, what this is really boiling down to, and it's interesting how things evolve over time, but this is boiling down to a test of our local Land Use Planning Act. Idaho's the 12th fastest growing state in the country. And before the recession set in, we were the 6th fastest growing state in the country. And if things turn around again in the economy, we may well be growing in the top 10 or more again. And Idaho code requires that each county and city, municipality, have a comprehensive land use plan and a zoning plan. And Idaho's a little different than a lot of states. Other states have statewide agencies that handle land use planning. Idaho does not. It's up to the counties to decide the local land use planning, and there's no state-based funding for that planning either. It's all up to local property taxpayers to foot the bill for the planning, and the county commissioners to enact the comprehensive planning plan. And so that's what our county has been doing all this time. And when this power line was proposed to come through, the county responded by forming a committee of a diverse group of individuals throughout the county, and they came up with the mandate from the commission was we weren't to oppose this. We were to find a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very significant. And so these folks gathered together over a long period of time and came up with our local corridor for the power line, which connected it in its route as it entered and exited the county. Mm-hmm. And back when this Local Land Use Planning Act was passed in 1975, it's interesting that landowners were opposed to it.
Right.
Because it imposed county restrictions on individual property owners and how they could use their land through zoning. Now, what we're finding is that the people that supported this law in the beginning, people like, at that time, the mayor of Boise, the Association of Counties, the utilities, such as Idaho Power, the governor, all those folks, and specifically now, the utility and those folks that are trying to put the power line through, the ones that promoted this law, are now not in favor of it anymore. Mm-hmm. And now they want to have statewide planning, and they're opposed to what the county has been doing here all along, which is following the local land use planning law.
Right.
And designating the corridor. And I find that very interesting, how things have turned that way. And so here we are in the middle of a battle, not just about a power line, but we're talking about, in the future, what input are our local county commissioners going to have in any type of land use activity that traverses our county.
Absolutely. Now, Doug, let me ask you some shotgun questions here this morning, so that we've only got about 12 minutes left. In your personal opinion, and I know you're a very studied individual on this topic, and you know the good, the bad, and the ugly, what are some of the really bad effects that you as a property owner and also a family man, what are you concerned about by having that transmission line go through your property?
Well, very good. I appreciate that. Yeah, one of the things that came out in our studies, if folks remember, when you drive to Pocatello, there's an implement dealership in American Falls. It sells Case products. And right through the middle of that dealership is a transmission line that I believe is 230, which is about half of what this one would be. And as we gathered information and testimony from individuals, irrigation supply producers that sell pivots and other systems, as well as implement dealerships like these folks in American Falls, they indicated to us that they couldn't configure or set up their GPS systems in the yard because of the electromagnetic radiation that comes from those power lines. They have to get away from them in order to get things set up correctly.
I see.
And right out of their yards. And so these are the types of impacts that would affect anything that is in the path of that power line. Mm-hmm. And so when you're out farming, when you're using GPS and those types of things, you just simply have to turn that off and rely on your own, which is becoming a greater cost all the time as time goes by. Those things are being utilized more efficiently.
Let's talk a little bit, Doug, too, about the danger. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I've listened to Brent, I've read all the stories and everything, but still, I'm concerned about the danger factor for my kids, my grandkids, everybody else being exposed to that transmission line. Is that a fear that's unfounded?
No, not at all. In fact, we feel like that is, not just to impact farmers and those that would use GPS systems, but we feel like that's something that would impact anybody. If you're around that on a consistent basis, that type of spin-off of electromagnetic radiation, I think that would cause anybody concern.
Yeah,
a homeowner or whoever with children, and so what we would like to see and what we had hoped would come out of this process of the BLM study and the EIS is that they would take a look at the growing technology of underground transmission, mm-hmm. which is being done more and more in the eastern states, mm-hmm. especially in Europe. Mm-hmm. And, that technology is becoming feasible, and they are now using it. When this process began, it was not yet cost-effective and feasible. And despite our best efforts, letters from the commission and everybody involved, the BLM felt like the process had taken too much time, in my opinion, and decided not to study that as a part of this segment here crossing Cassia County, the potential for running that line underground. And I feel that was a misstep on their part.
Well, let me ask you.
That could have been considered.
Let me ask you right there, Doug. There's another interesting question. I don't want to let it slip by, and pardon my interruption, but talking about the route itself, do you mean to tell me that there isn't any government ground, any BLM ground, etc., that they could use for an alternative route so they wouldn't have to come in and disrupt at least 40 landowners and their programs with agriculture? Isn't there an alternative that could be looked at?
There is. In fact, the county put together that alternative there was some folks that had some questions and concerns, and some landowners that everybody that was affected had an opportunity to be heard. And to be honest with you, Zeb, I don't know if anybody, a landowner that at the end of the day wasn't in support of the county's proposed corridor, which is set up and ready to go. And it does add some distance to the overall proposal, which would mean cost, but it considers those other concerns, those private property concerns that the BLM study did not consider, and that is why. And we feel like it's still a viable option, even though it does add some cost to the overall project.
Would you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, and tell me if I'm being unfair, but would you say that the nixing and saying no to an alternative route to go on BLM land might be because of the environmentalists raising a stink?
I think that's an important comment, Zeb, because what's happened here, if you look at it in the broad context, is over the years, environmentalists and well-intended folks who are concerned about environmental issues and wildlife, etc., there's been an added focus and increased attention to those types of concerns over a period of decades now. And what has happened is through our planning processes, we've neglected or overlooked the impacts to the private land people and the private land concerns in the favor of public land concerns. And so our NEPA, our National Environmental Policy Studies now, they don't effectively address those concerns. And they'll admit that to you in the beginning. They'll say, our decision will only affect public land. Well, that's true to the extent that the private property owners can stand up for their own rights because they're excluded from the process. Mm-hmm. The only leg we have, or the only seat at the table, is through the Local Land Use Planning Act and through our county commissioners. And that's just exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah, but Doug, also, gee whiz, you've touched on this earlier. It seems to me that the county commissioners, and I don't mean to denigrate any of them, I consider them my friends, but this basically just kind of says you're not worthy, you're not anything viable, we're going to step right over you regardless of what you try to do for your county. Is that right?
Well, you're talking about landowners now?
No, I'm talking about the general movement of this transmission line. The feeling I get is that we don't care about private property owners. We don't care about what the county commissioners are trying to do to maybe move this to another alternative route. We're going to slam dunk this and do it the way we want regardless of what you say. That's the feeling I'm getting.
Well, that's exactly right. And what they will tell you, what the planners and utilities will tell you, if you're not in a formal setting, if you're sitting around the table at dinner or lunch, is they'll say, because of the concern for the environment over all these years, we actually prefer to cross private land because it's cheaper and because we can get it done quicker. And that's the net effect of all of these years of planning in the favor of wildlife and public lands, is that the power lines, when possible, will cross private land as opposed to private land, or public land.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what, Doug, is the status right now? I mean, you don't get into a fight without knowing that somebody's going to get hit on either side of the ring. I mean, you know you're going to take some punches and you're going to try to give some back to them. But is this fight winnable, or have these people decided what they're going to do? They're going to do it anyway, and the government's just going to stand back and say, you can fight it if you want to, but it's just going to cost you money. We're going to have it our way or no way. Is that the feeling that I'm getting? Is it wrong to feel that way?
No, I think it's it is it is a big battle. There's no doubt about it. We realize the stakes that are involved here and what it will take to get this done. But I do think that we have the legal founding to continue, and we have the support of our commissioners who have done everything that they can to follow the law. And it wasn't really an option for the commissioners to get involved in this. They are required by state code to have a comprehensive plan. From the very beginning, they indicated that we would not oppose this, that we would find a way to make it work, and they've gone through every hoop and done everything possible to follow that local land use planning law. And at the end of the day, that's what will be tried. It won't power line per se, but it will be our local land use planning law, and what will trump, whether it be local land use planning act or whether it's the BLM and the feds that come in and say where this power line will go in Cassia County.
Well, Doug, you're a very, very organized individual, and I've got the highest regard for the way you're handling this, along with Mr. Stoker, etc. But I want to say again, the general public, I think, needs to be informed on this on a regular basis. So don't hesitate to call me back anytime, all the time, that we can do something on this program, because it just reeks of Big Brother stepping on everybody else, and we really don't have any repercussions, and that bothers me. I'm scared for you. I'm scared for private property owners. This whole thing just, to me, doesn't sound like it's kosher.
Well, you're right, Zeb, and I appreciate your awareness of that, and we definitely appreciate the opportunity to be on your program anytime, and we'll be back in touch as things progress. And we'll look for opportunities to visit with you again on the status of this, and we invite anyone who's able to participate and get involved in our local group or just in the hearings that will be coming. And you know, the BLM has not finalized their process yet. There's still opportunities to be involved in that as well. So thanks again for the opportunity.
No, thank you, sir. Excellent job this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Pickett from the Oakley area. God bless you, and we'll help any way we can. Thanks, and keep in touch with me, okay?
Likewise, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, sir. I'll tell you something, folks. I feel so much sympathy and empathy for those families, knowing that this transmission power line, I mean, the devastating effects of that transmission line going right straight through, 40 different property owners, landowners? Believe me, I think sometimes it's time to put the foot down and say, no, and we will fight you. Compliments to Doug for a great job this morning. I really appreciate it. Excuse me for clearing my throat on the air, but got a little bit of a cold. We will tell you now about Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Absolutely life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. Holy smokes. What are you waiting for? You know, the problem is too many people. They think about insurance and then they go, doop, in mind, out of mind, and they don't think about it again for another, maybe a month or whatever. You've got to make sure that you're covered. You've got to make sure that your family's covered. You've got to make sure that your business is covered. So talk to the people that can help you at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The number to call, 436-4424. You give them a call today, okay? I know a lot of you have been listening to me as I've been talking about my pillow. I love my pillow. I'm not trying to sound a little bit flaky when I say that, but I'm telling you the truth. I have one of those memory foam pillows, and it was waiting for me here to try when I got out of the Salt Lake Hospital and came home. Oh my goodness sakes. Hypoallergenic and antimicrobial. This new advanced technology memory foam is the secret. It's lighter, more supportive foam that sleeps the way you sleep. You can just distort that thing into 1,000 different directions, and it's comfortable. And I can honestly say, I love my pillow. You will too. Check them out. Check them out at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Talk to Brent Lee himself. Tell him I told you to come on in and check out these wonderfully comfortable pillows. New advanced memory foam. You're going to love them. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, 459 Overland in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Once again, I want to remind you that we are going to have our first lunch bunch for 2014 right over at Denny's restaurant on Thursday. Yes, at 11:30. I'm going to be asking Gina to cover me with a song or two early so I can jump outside, get in my pick-em-up truck, and boy, the status I'm in right now, jump outside, is just a play on words. It means move the wheelchair over here, jump in your fat body, go down the ramp, look out, don't run over the dog, get over to the pickup, jump inside, and head for Burley. And we will. Thursday for lunch bunch at 11:30 at Denny's restaurant. Oh my, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's always great. Nice people, super service at Denny's restaurant. We'll see you on Thursday. Okay, let's go to the phone lines right now. And we'll check and see if Gina, lovely Gina, has my guest waiting on the phone. And this, oh, you always have everything all ready to go. I mean, look at you had Michael Rogers all ready to go.
Before time.
I'm still chuckling. It was funny. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Casey Given on the phone with us, and I'm just going to let Casey kind of introduce himself. He's an editor of Young Voices, and give us your position and exactly what you do, Casey.
Hey, Zeb, great to be here with you, and happy National School Choice Week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to introduce myself, my name is Casey Given. I'm an editor of Young Voices, which is basically an initiative to get young people's, young liberty lovers' opinions into the media through op-eds, radio interviews, etc. So, yeah.
You're doing a great job, Casey, because we need more young people involved, not with their hands out, but with their hands extended in a handshake to get to know people and try to get more politically involvement. And I really appreciate and respect what you're doing. Casey, I've read a lot about Common Core. I've tried to study all the positive and or negative effects of Common Core. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I have right here on my desk, I don't know if you can see it if you're watching and listening to me on zebbell.com with my cameras, you can see over here on this other part of the desk, I've got a pile of papers probably about 8 inches high of nothing more than Common Core school material. And I still have so many questions because I'm not sure if I'm pro or con about Common Core. I lean towards the negativity. I'm not in favor of anything the government might be in control of. Give me your thoughts and do a little sales job as to why you think Common Core education is not a good thing.
Absolutely. So Common Core, even though it describes itself as a state-led standards initiative, is really a federal concoction cooked up in Washington and spoon-fed to the states. So basically, for your listeners who are unfamiliar, the Common Core state standards are a national education standards effort that were started in 2009 by the National Governors Association. And they were tied to President Obama's Race to the Top fund in 2010, which was a $4.35 billion fund grant for states to adopt Common Core. So they basically said, hey, states, if you adopt Common Core, we will give you hundreds of millions of dollars. So in the time since, 45 states, including Idaho, adopted Common Core, and now they're getting frustrated at the amount of federal control that's been asserted over Common Core. There's literally a Common Core review board here in Washington, in the Department of Education, that's going to be reviewing the standardized test questions that millions of American children are going to be taking come next year. So this is really just a federal concoction and really a way for the federal government to take over local schools.
All right. Now, Casey, there are those that have called me and criticized me on my radio program and said, oh, come on, you're looking at this thing as kind of a George Orwell, the government's creeping in on everything. No, it's not. It's just raising the standards of education and going to help all of our children attain bigger and better things in education. Myself, personally, when I looked at the program No Child Left Behind, that had so many holes in its screen door, the flies were more inside than they were outside. And I'm looking at this program as basically the same thing. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that that's an important thing to note. And your callers have a point that there are a lot of people who will get conspiratorial about Common Core, put on their tinfoil hats and say, oh, this is, Obama's going to be brainwashing our kids or whatnot. It's not about that. It's really just about how ineffective the federal government has been in setting local education policy. And we've seen this for decades. This is not conspiracy. This is history. We've seen this throughout the presidency of Bill Clinton and what was then called Goals 2000. We saw this under President George W. Bush with No Child Left Behind, where the federal government has increasingly tied federal grants, federal money to adoption of these mandates, these rules and red tapes in the classroom, and they just ultimately are not effective. So this is not conspiratorial. This is continuing the trend of a failed federal education policy.
What are the biggest negatives, in your opinion, Casey? Is it the cost? Is it going to be the actual standards of education? Is it going to be what's taught or not taught? I mean, what are the negatives that you want to talk about?
Well, I think the biggest things I like to focus on are the cost and are the federal control. Personally, I'm not a teacher, so I don't feel qualified to comment on the particular curriculum, even though there's a lot of commentary out there, and you'll see a lot of articles about people, bringing up some absurd questions and stuff in the textbooks. But personally, I think I've talked about the federal control, but just the cost alone is quite ridiculous. That every state has to spend several hundred millions of dollars to buy brand new textbooks, to buy hundreds of thousands of new computers, because every standardized test will now be taken by computer, and there's just so much concern and there's so much to be concerned about in terms of the cost, as well as the federal control, as well as that now there's a federal pipeline where bureaucrats are going to be reviewing what American children learn.
Now, therein lies another problem, and I'm kind of dabbing my fishing line in the creek here, trying to figure out if I'm going to get a nibble, because I'm not quite sure how to ask some of these questions. Is there, in your opinion, a ceiling on the information available? Does this keep kids from reaching for the stars and really trying to excel over and above their peers?
One thing about Common Core that many proponents like to describe it is they say, oh, well, Common Core is not a ceiling of educational standard; it's a floor. It's a basic, it's a basic education standard that puts all states on the same level, and they could add on to it. But that's absolutely not true. In fact, there's many states that where their educational standards by neutral parties have been determined to be better than Common Core in the past. So by adopting Common Core, they are really lowering their standards. So instead of having this kind of national standards that really are tailored to the lowest common denominator, what I think is best is for states to create their own standards, to create and tailor their own standards, tailored to their individual states and the local needs of their students to excel.
Now, there are some states, and one that comes to mind that is adamantly against Common Core. I'm not saying all the numbers, but I'm saying many of the people I've talked to, is the state of Indiana. One of my very best friends and one of the largest businessmen in the state of Indiana, Dave Bego, has been on my program along with others. And Indiana, along with some other states, they're really fighting this, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, specifically in Indiana, they introduced what they're calling a Common Core pause, where there was such an outrage from parents, teachers, administrators about Common Core that they've actually paused the implementation for further review by their Board of Education, and also for to hold town hall meetings where average tax-paying citizens can come in and raise their concerns. So I think this is a model that states wishing to look further into Common Core, even if they've adopted it, can do, is kind of put it on pause and really review what's going into the standards before moving forward.
Now, you wrote a piece called Could Common Core Kill School Choice? It's an excellent piece, and you really brought forth some interesting observations and, quite frankly, questions. What are your thoughts? Could Common Core education kill school choice and make it one size fits all?
Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up because it really ties into National School Choice Week, which is this week, which is a national effort to promote school choice. And a lot of people in the school choice community and charter schools and voucher programs are concerned about Common Core, concerned that their schools will have to teach Common Core. So specifically, we'll go one by one. For charter schools are public schools, so they are required by law to teach Common Core. But even for private voucher schools, for private schools that accept students who get a state-funded voucher, will effectively have to teach Common Core because college admissions tests such as the SAT and ACT are also aligning to Common Core. So even parents who put their children into a private school because they disagree with the Common Core, or even parents who homeschool their children because they disagree with state and private schools' education curricula, will effectively have to teach their children Common Core, lest they be put at a disadvantage for college.
The way that you wrote the story, and again, I'm looking at this sitting on the middle of the fence because I want to be fair and objective until I finally make my final decision. But the way you worded this in the story is that there is a great concern by the states that are against Common Core that basically down the road, government, the United States government, will be the one all catch-all and basically a national school board as to what happens in education. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. In fact, the National School Board is an exact quote from Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. That's how he described how he sees Common Core eventually developing. And it could definitely be a possibility precisely because of the technical review board that the Department of Education has created to review Common Core. So what many states are doing, besides what I said for Indiana, putting a pause bill, states like Florida, where Senator Rubio is from, are actually leaving the Common Core testing consortia, which is basically this kind of federally facilitated group of states who create the standardized test for Common Core, and instead keeping their own state tests. So that's another path that states can do moving forward, is to actually get out or cut the federal government's ties to Common Core, and instead create and tailor Common Core to their state's needs, and create their own state tests.
Casey, what is the best way? What is the best way for parents and school boards and teachers and principals and superintendents? What's the best way for people to learn exactly the facts and not what one side says versus the other side? Really, what's the best way to study this issue?
Well, I guess I would say there's a number of different groups out there that have been doing wonderful work on Common Core. I would say just, Google Common Core. There's the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, the Pioneer Institute. They've all been doing great work on Common Core that really kind of weighs both sides and makes a decision against them. There's also a great YouTube series if your listeners are more inclined to visual, put out by this Georgia group about Common Core. I believe the title is Stop Common Core. So if you just YouTube that, you'll see that. Mm-hmm. And this kind of learning online can really empower parents, concerned citizens to take their concern to their local schools, to ask their teachers, ask their administrators, ask hard-hitting questions, and ultimately elected officials about Common Core.
Now, the implementation on a state-by-state basis for all 50 states doesn't go into effect until when?
So most states, or all states, have kind of done a rolling process since it's such a dramatic change. So for most states, the Common Core won't be fully implemented until next year, 2015, when students are actually taking the federally facilitated test.
Okay, so there's still plenty of time for people to ask questions, demand answers, and do a study on this. But now my next question goes along with that. It's pretty hard to fight the government and tell them no.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult to, implement change in the government. But fortunately, I think we're really seeing a national movement spring up about Common Core. We're seeing state after state after state kind of raising concern about it. I've mentioned Indiana and Florida, but we've also seen this in states like Pennsylvania and states like Alabama that are really raising concerns about it and actually taking action to if not stop Common Core, to at least pause it and ask some hard-hitting questions.
Absolutely.
So we're really seeing a snowball effect in the states right now, and I think that especially as 2015 approaches, the big date for tests, we'll see more of a national concern and a national conversation about Common Core as well as in the individual states. So there is hope.
Okay, well, listen, you're excellent, my friend. Casey Given with Young Voices, and I absolutely... Casey, do you have a number and a website that people can inquire more about what you do and what you've got to say?
Absolutely. So Young Voices has a website, which is youngvoicesadvocates.com, where I have plenty of pieces about Common Core. And I've also have my personal website, caseygiven.com, that has several articles of mine about Common Core.
All right, we've got a caller with a quick question. Go ahead, caller, please, for Casey. Go ahead.
Yeah, our Constitution gives the state and county the school control of the schools. How are they going over the Constitution?
All right, that's a good question, caller. Go ahead, Casey. Answer that, would you please?
No, absolutely. That is a great point, and that Common Core really ultimately goes against the spirit of the Constitution because the federal Constitution doesn't mention anything about public education. So therefore, by the 10th Amendment, which gives all other powers to the states, it should ultimately be a function of the state government. But basically, how the federal government has got around it is, which they do in many other aspects of life in governance, is that they've offered federal grants, federal money for states to enact their will. So they've said, hey, states, we will give you, so many millions of dollars if you adopt our rules, which with Race to the Top, which was a $4.35 billion program, was ultimately Common Core. So that's how the federal government has got around with it. And we see this not just in education, but many other aspects of the federal government's reach.
Absolutely. Casey, you did a great job. I'm going to be calling you back in the future to come back on our program again. Casey Given, thank you very much. God bless. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Deb.
All right, sir. Take care. Very, very interesting discussion about Common Core education. And, I've got a lot of questions. I do, and I've been told by educators, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. And then I've talked to other teachers, and they said, no. I remember I talked to a teacher in Indiana, and she was a superintendent in one of the schools back in Indiana, and she said, absolutely not. We're fighting it tooth and nail. I've got a lot of questions, and I haven't yet finalized all the answers, but I will. I promise. We've got a weather update with Michael Rogers Weather. I bet he's there. Let's take a listen.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Cloudy for today, rain for tomorrow. It's going to be tricky with the rain because of the temperature. So what I'm talking about, basically, if it starts raining and the temperature's like 34, 32, that could be some snow. But right now, with our daytime temperatures being in the 40s and getting there, looks like it's going to be pretty much rain. And all that's going to be taking place for tomorrow. So all these clouds you see for today, you're going to get it set up for some weather action tomorrow, and you'll come out of it the day after tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
There's MichaelRogersWeather.com. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Gina, I got a question for you. Are you right there? I know you are.
Yep, I'm here.
Do you really get into all these different awards programs that are on television?
No. I think they're a waste of time.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad to hear you say that. I have never seen a more frivolous, more phony, more basic waste of money and action and time on television as those award ceremonies.
I have to agree. I mean, I think it's a distraction to get us away from the real topics that we need to be taking care of.
Yeah, here we have, there was a lot of talk the other day. Did you see what Madonna wore at the last award ceremony?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you think she purposely wore that style garb to basically run down the Quakers in our United States?
No, actually, I read the story, and it was her little son who actually dressed her, and he wanted to wear a tuxedo and go out, dressed, to the nines in the tux, and he wanted his mom to dress like her.
Mm-hmm.
Or he wanted Madonna to dress like him, so she let her son dress her.
Okay.
So that's I thought it was kind of a sweet story.
But the press turned it the other way.
Yes, the press did turn it the other way.
And what about Beyonce and also Katy Perry? There were a lot of people last night on the news that said, whoo, things got a little too hot and steamy on that opening.
See, and honestly, I didn't even see it, so you're going to have to explain it to me. Was it bad?
How do I say this politely? If it was a show for television, it would have been on at 12:01 a.m.
Oh, because of the dress and the attire.
Yes.
And what it showed and what it's supposed to show.
All the above.
See, and that's just, I've never watched the Grammys, the Emmys, the Tonys. I mean, kudos to all of the actors for all of the, the things that they do, but I think that it's a distraction for what we really need to be.
But why does TV have to go to the point where you, especially as a young mother with Kennedy that's 6 years of age, you really, if you're doing your job as a parent, and I know you are, you're very protective of your son, why do you have to sit there with that remote glued to your hand, ready at a moment's notice to hit the change button? I mean, television is absolutely pathetic.
Honestly, that's why I like public television. I like PBS because they censor themselves, and with cable television, they don't have to.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
You've got a phone call.
Okay, caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning.
Yes.
Back to the education. Several educators have told me that they're pushing to where basically the parents are going to be the teachers, that all the homework will be done at home. My problem with that is we're old people raising a young kid. But even if a young mother, their child first starts into, say, kindergarten, they're a good 20 years away from having been in those classes themselves.
Absolutely.
There's no way they can do that. There's no way they should have to do that. And if that's what they're pushing for, why are we paying teachers?
I wouldn't say that that's the gist of the entirety of Common Core at all. It's an aspect that's been questioned. There's no question about that. I think your concerns are justified, and you need answers to it. My position on Common Core is I looked at No Child Left Behind. I thought that was a frivolous government waste of money. I thought that it actually inhibited children with goals and aspirations to reach for the stars, to try to outdo their peers, and I thought it held them down. And when you listen to the terminology of Common Core, this is me speaking, I'm not taking this for anybody else, but when I hear the terminology Common Core, the word common, everything's the same, everything's vanilla, I don't like that. I want to see education just absolutely let kids reach up to the top of that ladder and grab for a star. I don't want anything that limits or encircles them into the same vein of thought as everybody else.
But that is what's happening, and they're not willing to look at the child and the child's own ability.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what the teachers have been trained to, in the past history, they've been trained, for the most part, to pay attention to what the child's ability are. Some of them are going to be A math students, some of them are going to work with their hands.
Yeah, and the problem, and I think another thing, too, that I'd like to get your comment on this, just quickly, because I'm almost out of time. But I've said for a long time on this radio program, that not every child, boy or girl, deserves and or should go to college. I think we're overlooking some of the greatest trades that are available for education in this country, whether it's welders, whether it's plumbers, whether it's, any kind of secretarial. I just think that we're pushing college all the time, and we're wasting millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, on kids that are getting student loans to go to college that really don't belong there.
I totally agree with that. That's an absolute fact. Once again, we're going to lose our tradesmen if everybody becomes a computer expert or a psychology major.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call this morning. God bless you. Have a good day. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I'm listening to you. You're doing a great job. Go ahead.
Marty Mixon calling, Zeb.
Yes, Marty. How are you, my dear friend?
Really good. I'm excited to be driving through Twin during your radio program so I could catch a little bit of that. And anyway, I hope you're doing good. And on that, I've got a couple thoughts. One with the education. My youngest is 13, and there's absolutely no way I could help him with his homework. So my 16-year-old daughter does that, which we're grateful for that. That she's able to. And have you got a minute? Yeah,
just real quick. I got 2 minutes left in this segment. And what's number 2 point about Common Core education?
Well, my other point was, and I wrote a little poem about it, but a couple weeks ago I was in the D.C. area and they were talking on public radio. Their big concern was Kermit the Frog. That it takes him 10 years to get enshrined in the Smithsonian with Miss Piggy. But I gotta write a little poem about that, and it's short. If you've got a minute, I'll give you a little poem.
I'll tell you what, I've got one commercial, and I can hold that for, if it's not longer than 2 minutes, go for it. If you would, Marty, go right ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of a short one. So this is my thoughts on Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy. And I had a friend of mine title the poem for me, which makes it better. The title of this poem is called Green Legs and Hands. The Kermit I know is the green-legged frog. Now, he's always hanging out with this sizable hog. They dance and they swoon most every night. These two as a couple, why, it doesn't seem right. But Miss Piggy just loves that frog-legged log. And Kermit goes bonkers, listening to the squealy pig talk. So that night as they danced, she cringed as he joked how her hands and her bacon would be much better smoked. She reached up and slapped him, saying, Kermit, your man isn't sick. But frog legs would be good on a barbecue stick. So, or eaten with butter after 2-hour base. And so Miss Piggy or Kermit, why, it's just a matter of taste. And so, we all have our little different tastes and what we like and what we don't like, but if we use our common sense, I guess we can all get along. But anyway.
Real quick.
Yeah, good talking to you.
No, wait a minute. Hang on just a second. Just a second, Marty. I got to ask you a good question. First of all, thank you for the poem. Secondarily, as you cross this great United States, you said you were in D.C. a couple of days ago. You've gone all across this nation so many times. What's the general feeling and attitude as we look at the State of the Union address tonight that could be critical for the next 3 years of this administration? Real fast.
As time's gone by, people are absolutely sick of this administration. And unless you're a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat that there's no change in your mind under any circumstance, people are starting to see the light. And everywhere I go, people are just tired of this. I've got a pen, I've got a phone, I can do what the blank I want. People are tired of it.
All right. Marty, please call me after I'm off the air because I definitely want to talk to you about another subject matter. God bless you. Drive carefully. So good to hear from you. Thank you, my friend.
All right. You bet.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good friend right there from Logan, Utah, listening to us as he wheels on through the area. Hey, let's ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 9 to 6. Don't forget, they've got all the ATVs. I mean, all the ATVs. They open the showroom door, and it's just solid ATVs, solid snowmobiles. Look over at the accessory department. Holy buckets, they've got everything you need. And, of course, if you need something worked on, they've got the best parts and service department in the valley. These guys really know what they're doing. Now, they're open 9 to 6, Tuesdays through Saturdays. Don't forget, this is where the fun is sold. Let's ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. We'll see you there. I got to run to the news right now, and running is an oxymoron for me. I'm going to just kind of push the button and let Gina take care of everything. And I want to say quickly before I send it to the news, thank you, everybody, for all your kind thoughts. I mean, I've got stacks and stacks of cards. I've had emails. I've had letters. Thank you for all your very kind thoughts. We're healing up, and I appreciate all your very nice prayers and kind words. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Oh, welcome back. Hour number 3. My goodness sakes, we made it all the way to hour number 3. On a Tuesday, that doggone fog rolls in again. I can't believe that. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley with I Love My Pillow, my memory foam pillow from Lee's Furniture. You got to try one. They're really comfortable. And also, Western Waste Services, always at your disposal, getting rid of your garbage. Get on the route service today. Call them at 734-6969. Hey, by the way, the Chadwick Sports Grill. Have you eaten there lately? Well, let me tell you what the special is today. Chicken teriyaki over steamed rice and super salad. It is fantabulous. You're going to love the environment. You're going to love the people. You're going to love the food at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. You stop in and see those really nice people today. Well, it's Tuesday, and my headsets aren't working right here. All of a sudden, I got to get them plugged in just right, because we're going to welcome into the studio via the telephone the one, the only, the omnipotent overseer of historical facts, Dr. History.
Good morning, Zeb. How you doing this morning?
I'm not too bad, stiff and sore, but I'm here.
You're gaining on it then?
Every day.
Good.
Every day.
Well, just keep doing what they tell you to do.
I am, and that's what tees me off.
You hate it when they're right.
I do. Anyway, how's Dr. History doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Well,
doing great.
You had
down to St. George last week, got a little bit of warm weather for a few days, and now back to this.
Okay, yeah, back to this fog and back to the inversion and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you had a wonderful story last week, and what have you got on the menu for this morning?
Well, I'm going to talk about the medicine man of the Old West.
Okay.
So, you ready?
Well, let me just ask you, I'm just going to say this. I think a lot of people didn't realize the value and the importance of the medicine man, and in some Western movies, I even felt like they sometimes made fun out of the guy, but he carried a lot of clout, did he not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to talk about.
All right.
You know, in the tribes of North America, the medicine man, or shaman, and sometimes, referred to as the witch doctor, which is kind of a disparaging term, but really, we're going to talk about him as the medicine man or the shaman.
Okay.
And he was an honored and respected leader, second only to the chief.
Oh, boy.
Now, sometimes, in fact, he was the chief. And those called upon to be healers, they needed intelligence, common sense, and a good understanding of human behavior.
Well, then that would not let you and I be a shaman.
No. Now, Sitting Bull was an outstanding example of this kind of medicine man. He was, he was a well-known Sioux chief. He was an advisor, a philosopher, a political leader, but he was a healer of the sick. And I don't know if very many people realize that about him. But the typical medicine man was thought to be in contact with the Great Spirit. and his people relied on him to keep evil away and to heal the sick. Now, a shaman was often called upon to do sometimes things that were totally impossible. Now, a lot of people think about just healing the sick, but for instance, he might be asked to predict when it would rain.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had studied past weather patterns carefully, or even observed sometimes the behavior of animals, he could sometimes make an educated guess close enough to hold on to his reputation as to when it might rain.
Well, that's how Michael Rogers started.
That's right. He watched, whatever he did. But,
okay.
Now, typically we think of shamans as being men, but according to history, there was a few women that were also called and answered the call to be a healer. And in the West, women were allowed to become shamans in the Crow, the Assiniboine, and some of the other tribes. In Montana, there was a woman that was sometimes, they were summoned through a dream to become a medicine woman.
Really?
And this is a lot of times how it happened, or they might be the wife of the medicine man, and so she might learn the healing art from her husband.
Okay.
Now, Crow women were the primary caretakers of the medicine bundle. That's the bundle that was carried and thought to have had powers.
Which was the first and original doctor's bag.
That's right. And but most tribes found ways to include women in the shamanism or the medicine deal. But many Indian women actually, they did the sweat bath thing and participated in ceremonies like the sun dance that the medicine men did.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a considerable variation in the techniques used by shamans. Now, there were those who were primarily herbalists, that used the herbs and plants. Others claimed supernatural powers and gained their strength through visions or dreams. And a lot of them used drums or rattles or some kind of a noisemaker, and then chanting. And some healers were pretty good at the art of suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And some were basically tricksters who used sleight of hand and even ventriloquism and other illusions. And but the thing that was most important was that the patients trusted him. Now, this connection between trust and response to the shaman treatment is, there's a story. There's a Dr. Hume, and he was a physician on one of the reservations in Oklahoma. Now, on one occasion, this Dr. Hume was treating a very sick Indian chief using conventional therapy without any improvement. The guy was not getting better.
Well, now, wait a minute, though, Doc, be fair. Would you lay on the floor of a teepee and accept the abilities of somebody that walks in all covered with different colored paint, wearing a buffalo head going, and shaking rattles? Now, come on.
Yeah. Well, like I say, this was an Indian chief. He was one of the head chiefs, and he was sick.
Oh.
And this Dr. Hume, what he was doing just wasn't working.
Uh-huh.
So another famous medicine man, and I won't even try to pronounce his name, he was called, and after some occult ceremony, the shaman moved his hands beneath the cloth that covered the sick chief, and he pulled out a live possum. And
really?
That it came from the chief's body, and amazingly, the chief made an immediate recovery. So he pulled out a live possum supposedly out of the chief's body.
There is a joke there, but I'm not going to tell it.
And he got better.
Okay.
So anyway, the way to become a shaman varied from tribe to tribe. Now, like if you're an aspiring medicine man, a lot of times you'd have a vision quest where you'd go up into the mountains and to determine your potential for becoming a shaman.
Did they have billboards back in those days?
Pardon?
Did they have billboards back in those days between Indian camps? No, I mean, the thing I'm saying is that, like, if they were advertising, would they go, wanted for Sioux Nation, a shaman, and you'd see it's nailed to a tree someplace?
Well, if you were a Crow, you wouldn't go to the Blackfeet, I can tell you that.
Oh, okay.
So, but the Blackfeet medicine men, and they sometimes selected their own successor, usually a young boy or a man, and they trained him. Now, the schooling was called the 7 tenths of medicine, meaning that it took 7 years to become a shaman.
Holy cow.
So, a lot of people don't realize. They just think that, okay, you become one and that's it. But the story of one Blackfoot medicine man's quest when he was 15, he was living up in northern Montana, And the youth went to a shaman and asked how he could enter the society of being a healer. Well, the old medicine man sang some songs. He prayed to the sun. He said to the spirits, he said, look down on this boy and give him some power and help him to become a great chief. Well, the boy went to the mountains and he fasted for 7 days, and he was afraid, but he was warned not to run away or he would lose his power.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where it gets a little bit spooky, but he, like I said, he was fasting for 7 days. He says a raven came and took him to a man who told him that arrows or bullets could not harm him. But if anyone struck him with a moccasin, his powers would be lost.
So a bullet and what?
Arrows.
They couldn't hurt him.
No.
But if somebody took off their shoe like Nikita Khrushchev in '63 and beat it on the podium at the UN, that was going to knock them all down.
A moccasin.
A moccasin.
Had to be a moccasin.
Oh.
His powers would be lost.
Oh.
So finally the man said to the boy, he says, I give you power to doctor men shot by bullets and power to take out things that are sticking in the throat.
Oh, my goodness.
So he was a specialist.
Yeah, I'd say.
He was the first of the specialists, I guess you could say. And
what would be sticking in your throat?
Power, and off he went.
What would be sticking in your throat?
Well, I wondered about that. I mean, if it's an arrow sticking through your throat, I don't know.
Huh.
I don't think that's going to work.
Okay.
But not all medicine men were good people. One of the worst was a chief named Degauche, and he led a branch of the Assiniboine tribe. And Degauche, or his real name was He Who Holds the Knife, as he was later called, what his method was that he would poison those who stood in the way of his getting into power. So his people were astonished at his, quote, spiritual ability to predict the death of his enemies.
Really?
They didn't realize that he was the cause.
Uh-huh.
So, but healers of all kinds, they would gain respect by predicting the course of a disease. And, if you're really an observant physician, you can kind of make a reasonably good guess, even today, how a disease is going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of doctors now, just like back then, they could look at a guy and say, hey, you're done, Or they could look at them and say, okay, you're going to be sick for 2 weeks and then you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but trust was still the first step in patient management. I mean, they used mysterious rituals and the power of suggestion, and many of the shamans maintained a good record of results. And like I say, they kind of knew the illnesses, and they knew that a lot of illnesses would actually get better on their own.
Well, now, wait just a second, though. Was there some kind of a medical board of review that if the shaman was wrong like 6 or 7 times in a row, time to find yourself a new shaman?
I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
I
what
thought
happens
you
if
would.
You're wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, actually, back in those days, 70% of people that were sick with typhoid fever survived after a few weeks. Now, with pneumonia, patients sometimes who looked like they were close to death would suddenly get better.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of, a spontaneous recovery, the doctor or the shaman was given credit with the cure. And, of course, like I said, it can work the other way. And that's what I'm going to mention here. In 1876, 77, there were epidemics of measles that went through the Paiute tribes, and dozens of shamans and their sons were put to death for witchcraft.
Uh-oh.
So if if your practicing methods weren't working, it could be fatal.
Bad shaman.
Bad shaman, yes. But herbal remedies, they were considered the first line of defense against illness. And, the native caregiver had a large selection of plants to choose from. The Northern Cheyenne alone, they recognized at least 138 species of plants that they use for food and medicine. And, in fact, the United States National, I guess you'd call it the pharmacy back then in 1888.
Yeah.
They actually adopted over 200 of these vegetable drugs and herbs from the Indians.
No kidding. 200?
Yeah, that are still used in different forms today.
Yeah.
But people in Europe, thousands of miles away, they use some of the same herbs that the Indians use.
Well, so, like, if a guy goes in there to the teepee and he's got a broken arm and they treat him for having pneumonia, you could tell you got a bad shaman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, too, about the broken stuff.
Okay.
So,
right.
But willow bark, that was actually one that they used a lot of. Willow bark is actually an analgesic, and chemists later on in our day discovered that willow bark actually has salicylic acid, which is a drug similar to what we use in aspirin.
Oh, be darned.
So they would chew on a willow bark.
So you just tell your patient to go chew on a tree.
That's right. Go bite the tree and chew on it, and you'll feel better.
Okay.
But herb gatherers prepared medicine from plants, the stems, the flowers, the roots, and fruit. But there was a lot of care and ceremony that prevailed around acquiring and preparing the medicine.
Oh. So
that was part of the program of gathering the herbs.
So you had to do the dance and all that kind of stuff?
Right, exactly.
I see.
But it was thought to be dangerous not to follow certain of these spiritual formalities, I guess, in the collection of the materials, and actually the drugs themselves might be harmful rather than helpful if they didn't follow the proper procedures.
I see.
But the herbal material was used in a lot of different ways. It might be pulverized or moistened or applied as a poultice. They might actually chew it up and mix it with saliva.
Oh!
They might boil it with grease for a salve, or sometimes they'd actually take needles or something to scratch the skin and then put it on where they've scratched the skin.
Oh, really?
So that it would get into the bloodstream, yeah.
Oh, so they got an infection and they went in there for just the common cold.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes the drug was actually mixed with tobacco and smoked. As we know, there's certain herbs out there right now that are being projected as being good for you.
Holy smokes.
Or it could be injected into different parts of the body. Occasionally it would be vaporized and inhaled in a sweat lodge.
Well, now, did these shaman have kind of a association to the point where they get together in January at maybe the Hilton Teepee or something, and they'd have the Book of Shamanry or something to compare notes?
That's a good question, and I'm because typically you had one shaman per tribe or per group of a tribe. But, when they would get together in kind of a rendezvous type situation, maybe they did discuss, say, hey, this worked for this and that worked for that. And,
yeah.
That would almost make sense.
Yeah, you get down to number 12 and you look at number 12 on the list and all the shamans go, no, don't do that, that killed him.
Yeah. So, but, some of the concoctions that were drunk in the form of teas and, like say, some put directly on wounds as antiseptics, and of course, dosage was totally a trial and error thing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But the Crows, the Cheyennes, and the Flatheads actually used a plant called yarrow, and that actually helped coagulate the blood.
No.
So, yeah, the Crows also used a poultice and a salve from yarrow for burns and for fevers. There's the bark of the juniper and the Canada balsam tree that was a good application to wounds as an antiseptic. So again, they learned how to prevent the infections.
When you stop and think about it, and I know I'm making some kind of jesting remarks, but really there had to be something written down, somewhere, or passed down from generation to generation or shaman to shaman. Because what worked, it looked like some of it was working.
Well, it did, and I don't know that they ever wrote anything down. In fact, a lot of what we know about this was written down by white men as they mingled with the Indians.
I'll be darned.
So they would write down because, we really don't know of anything that was written by the Indians themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but nutritionally, over hundreds of years, the tribes discovered the use of foods that were available. They found that some foods were necessary for good health. For example, Native Americans were not prone to developing scurvy like the white men.
Uh-huh.
And part of the reason was that they had some things, different plants that were good, that had sufficient vitamin C.
No. And ranch dressing they could put on top of it.
That's right.
Okay.
Anything to get it down. But,
sure.
They found that this vitamin C was found in fresh meat, fat, liver. Many tribes loved not only fresh, uncooked liver and fat, but also, now get this, the undigested vegetable contents of the stomach of the buffalo.
You do this every single time on the program when I got a whole list of restaurants to talk about later on.
Yeah. So, they love to open up the stomach of the buffalo and eat the what wasn't digested of the vegetable content.
Oh, my gosh. You had to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof to do something like that.
Oh, yeah. But, when food was scarce, the Indians, they made, and you've heard of this, the pemmican.
Oh,
pemmican,
yeah.
I don't know.
Pemmican.
Pemmican, yeah. And that was jerked meat or fish, and they pounded it into a powder. Then they'd mix with berries, and then they would use melted fat to make this. And this actually prevented a vitamin deficiency.
Really?
It was rich in vitamins.
How did they know this, though? Really, I'm not trying to be facetious. How did they know that they needed that in their diet?
I don't think they did know that they needed it. I think they just found that over hundreds of years of experimenting, they found that the pemmican, if they were starving or that the pemmican got them through the winter.
Oh my! Huh.
So, and same with the vitamin C, and same with the willow bark.
Yeah.
Just with experimenting, they. And you wonder who's the first guy that tried chewing on a willow bark,
Yeah, it wasn't me.
And said, hey, I feel better.
Yeah.
But they also discovered that eating raw buffalo liver was beneficial to those who had lost a lot of blood. So, in other words, they were able to treat at least one form of anemia. If some guy had had a knife wound or whatever and lost blood, that the raw buffalo liver helped.
Their taste buds must have been really poor.
Well, they weren't used to the salt and sugar and all that stuff that we are. But, another disease called rickets, which is a bone disorder related to vitamin D deficiency, was rare because the Indian women nursed their children a lot longer than white people. So the Indian children rarely got rickets because they got the vitamin D from their mothers.
Really?
So, yeah. But... anyway, I've got more to go, but I can see we're about out of time.
Yeah, this is an amazing story because, I wasn't half kidding before because these shamans, did they get together? Or you said the Crows didn't like so-and-so, and maybe the Blackfeet didn't like the Flatheads, and the Sioux didn't like the Navajo, or whatever the case might be. But they all had their own medicine men. You'd think they would have had a convention, and waved a white flag as a truce and sat there at the Holiday Inn or something and just kind of compared notes.
Well, I'm thinking that, that among the Blackfeet, the Shoshones, and all these, they had their smaller sub-tribes of maybe 50 to 100 people that would travel about, and when they found another smaller tribe, they would probably get together, and 2 or 3 of those, smaller sub-tribes, I guess if you want to call them that, would get together, and maybe the shamans at that point did discuss, the health issues.
You want to have some fun this afternoon? Here's what you do. You go home during lunch hour, and you put on a breechcloth, and then you put on a buffalo head and paint your face and get a hatchet, and then your first patient this afternoon, you wait a few minutes till they're settled in the office, and then you go,
Well, I thought about that with some of my more difficult patients.
I tell you, that'll cure them.
Yeah, they'll be out the door so fast.
They couldn't walk in there, but they were running out.
That's right. He couldn't walk in, but he sure ran out in a hurry.
Hey.
Now, I want to talk about broken bones and fractures and wounds sometime.
Let's do that next week.
Oh, I could do that, because I've got some more things that the Indians did that I think you'll find fascinating, that, as far as fractures and setting bones and stuff like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ken Turner, better known now on this program as Dr. History, coming onto this program and telling us all about shamans. And next week we'll be here at the same place and we'll find out more.
We'll do that. We'll just follow up on this subject and give you a little more information.
God bless you, man. Have a great day. Thank you.
You have a good day, Zach.
All right. Thanks a lot. Holy cow, that was interesting. Let's not forget School Days in Cassia County. Every Thursday we have that segment at about 10 minutes after 10 on Zeb at the Ranch, and it's brought to you by A Child's World at 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. Don't forget they're having a winter clearance on all their winter coats and dresses, and they've got all the comfortable shoes from Cherokee, and they've got great birthday present ideas over there and free gift wrapping. What a great place. A Child's World, 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley, along with Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. For over 14 years, the folks in Magic Valley have come to the Ambulatory Surgery Center on Highland Drive in Burley and receive outstanding personal medical care and save lots of money. Call 677-8888. 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center, along with the Child's World, bringing you school days in Cassia County. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Hey, I got a great idea for you for Valentine's Day. It's the Drift Inn, 545 F Street in Rupert. How about a perfect weekend getaway for Valentine's Day? 6 spacious, newly remodeled suites available for their overnight guests. All you have to do is call 436-1300 to book today. And on Tuesday nights, don't forget they've got the fantastic cooking of Chef Dave Haley. Ooh, it's called Tuscan Tuesdays with all the Italian entrees. It's delicious. The management and staff at the Drift Inn strive to provide always excellent food, the best of drinks and service in a charming, historic small-town atmosphere. Open for lunch, dinner, or special events. It's the Drift Inn, and check out that Valentine getaway at the Drift Inn in Rupert. Right now, we're going to go to the phone lines, and with us on the phone, the Director of Communications with the Institute for Energy Research. Good morning, Ben Cole. How are you?
Zeb, it's going great here, except we're frozen. You probably are too, but it's good to hear your voice.
No, I tell you what, you guys have had a cold snap of all cold snaps. Now, we're in a little bit of an inversion here, and it's probably about 30 degrees right here. It's not too bad. But nothing like what you've been subjected to. Man, I'll tell you, that East Coast has really been a cold refrigerator.
It really has, and, we're having a bit of an issue in the Midwest and in the Northeast with some energy supply, some heating fuel supplies, propane. Looks like all that's going to be taken care of just fine. But thank the Lord for the coal supplies that we have that have been able to come online to supply the energy that folks needed here in the Northeast to heat their homes. It's been a much needed and much welcome fact that we still have some coal supplies left in the United States to fill those electricity needs when we need them.
Yeah, but Ben, it's going to be the last year. You don't have to worry about using coal anymore. That's why the president's going to shut it off. We're going into a big, huge global warming campaign again tonight after the State of the Union message. You don't have to worry about it. Sell your winter coats. Sell all your winter material because it's going to be just beautiful and balmy from now on.
Well, it's going to be interesting to hear how the president says that tonight. It's going to be interesting to hear how he addresses the issue of climate change. The folly of this whole climate change activism, and I really call it activism, it's not so much policy, it's not really even science, quite frankly, is that when it's hot, it's blamed on climate change. When it's cold, it's blamed on climate change. When it's sunny, when it's cloudy, when it's wet, when it's dry, whatever the case is, the climate change activists will say this is the result of our use of carbon and our development of our energy resources. It really is sort of like anything that happens meteorologically becomes their latest best excuse to support policies to kill huge swaths of America's working public.
Ben, what are you looking for tonight? I mean, you of anybody probably has your pen and your notebook ready to go, but this man tonight scares me. I've said for the last couple of weeks that this State of the Union message is going to be the most critical. This man is power hungry. This man has a base of people that want his ideology to really be pushed forward. He claims he's got his pen and his phone and he's ready to go and do whatever he has to go above Congress. What do you think this man is going to do to, quote, transform America, especially in the energy department?
Well, that's a great question. The president has basically articulated a go-it-alone strategy on climate change. It's interesting and perhaps ironic coming from this president because if you remember back during the Bush administration, he excoriated the Bush administration for what he called a go-it-alone strategy when it came to dealing with global terror. Well, this president has the go-it-alone strategy when it when it deals with global climate. So here we have one global climate exchange global go-it-alone strategy exchange for another. I'll tell you what really concerns us is exactly what you said, this idea that he's going to transform America through executive action, through really imperial orders that come out of the White House because he can't get his policies through Congress. And no one should forget that this president got everything he wanted when it came to health care. He got everything he wanted when it came to the stimulus. He got everything he wanted when it came to school and education policy. For 2 years, he had complete Democratic control and a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, and he could not get his energy policies through a Democratic-controlled Congress. Harry Reid would not let the Senate vote on cap and trade. Mm-hmm. So really, that's the reason that the president is now going around Congress. He couldn't even get it through the Democrats. And so he's going to do it by the stroke of a pen. And we've been following very closely, as I know you have, Zeb, some of the developments through this EPA fraudster who's now been sentenced to prison.
Right.
He stole more than $1.5 million from U.S. taxpayers, pretending to be a CIA agent for about 10 years. All the while, he wasn't even showing up to work. This guy just gave a deposition to congressional investigators explaining the nature of his fraud. And when he was asked by congressional investigators, and mind you, this is a senior leader in the EPA. He worked right under Gina McCarthy, the current EPA administrator. He asked what the job was that he was working on for the EPA during all these past years. And he said he was working on a project that involved three phases. One was to research the data and literature concerning climate change. 2 was to establish diplomatic relationships with parallel leaders and other governments around the world to address climate change from a global perspective. And the third, he said this under sworn testimony before congressional investigators, the third component of his project was to fundamentally alter the DNA of capitalism.
What does that mean?
When I read that, I said I had to read it again. I said, I cannot be reading what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Here we have a senior leader, a senior position at the Environmental Protection Agency, who says that the ultimate goal of a major project of the agency deals with tinkering with and undermining and altering and transforming our economic system. The moment I read that, I went over to Dan Kish. He's in our office. I know he's been on your show before. I said, Dan, you won't believe this. We sent it to the Wall Street Journal and Fox News. People couldn't believe what they saw. But there it was, in black and white, sworn testimony under oath. The goal of a major project, the EPA, was to change capitalism. Now, that doesn't sound like environmental policy to me, Zeb. I don't know what it sounds like to you. But we've been saying now for the last several months and years even, and this has confirmed that everything about this president's policies, everything people are going to hear tonight, it has nothing to do with energy. It has everything to do with power.
When you look at this, though, and maybe I'm trying to kick a dead horse here to get up off the ground and run away, but I want more of an exact answer on this. When you look at his transforming America attitude, and you look at his stance on energy ever since he was a senator in Illinois, and some of the stupid statements he's made, like he wants to see electricity rates skyrocket, and former Energy Secretary Chu said that they wanted to see gas go to $8 and $9 a gallon. I'm telling you something right now, Ben. Our economy is as shaky as a leaf on a tree right now. Any major increases in energy costs and delivery costs and shipping costs and trucking and transportation, we're on the brink of being pushed into the Grand Canyon permanently financially. What is the matter with these people?
Well, you're right. We still have sort of a very, very shaky economic condition. I was looking at some data the other day. There are still states that are lagging behind, states where unemployment has gotten worse just in the last year. The stock market, as you saw last week, has started to sort of show some softening.
Yep.
So we're not by in any way that the president stands up tonight and says the state of our union is strong. Everyone ought to just shut off their TV, because anything anybody can say after that must be a fabrication. It must be an exaggeration. I don't know what bubble he's living in, and I don't know what bubble his advisors are living in, and what bubble his speechwriters have been writing in. But tonight, if he stands up and doesn't address directly the consequences of the policies of the last 5 years that have harmed rather than helped the American economy, the American working family, the middle class, the small business owner, if he cannot understand how his policies are hurting rather than helping, there's really just no hope until we can get through the next election cycle. And I'll tell you this: he admits without words that his policies are failing, and that is how he's been writing executive orders to get around the implementation of Obamacare, to delay Obamacare. And if you'll remember, some Republicans wanted to shut down the government over one issue. They wanted to delay Obamacare. So here's what happened. We shut down the government. There's no agreement to delay Obamacare. We reopen the government. What does the president do? He writes an executive order to delay Obamacare's implementation. So without words, but by his actions, he is representing the fact that he knows these policies don't work. But he's going to stand up tonight with the spotlights on and the American public watching, and he's going to give us another dog and pony show about how his policies, and he needs to double down and push harder, and we just need to keep pressing ahead, and how he's going to go it alone on these energy regulations without Congress.
Do you think that we're going to hear like you just used the phrase, double down, do you think we're going to be seeing a double or tripling down of more of our taxpayer dollars going to the frivolous wastage of green energy with wind and solar?
Well, I'll tell you what he can't do. Mother Hubbard is going to the cupboard, and the cupboard is bare. I mean, there is no more money. There is no more stimulus money. There's a fight in every appropriations bill to get carve-outs for green energy. I just saw today that there's a farm bill that's getting passed through now with bipartisan support that's going to increase funding for biomass research and for biomass subsidies. Those are some concerns. I'll tell you one of the biggest ways that the president is looking to continue to fund his green energy schemes. It's in the single largest portion of the budget, and that's defense spending. And he has a Secretary of Defense in Chuck Hagel, and he's got secretaries of all of the branches of the armed services who are more than willing to spend upwards of $50 a gallon for fuel in order to pay for biofuels to run the U.S. military. So he is going to be awarding contracts through a $700 billion per year department of the government, the Department of Defense. That's the biggest slush fund that they can tap right now, and he's already starting to do it. You've probably read about the Great Green Fleet. He's going to fund these green energy schemes through contracts awarded through the Department of Defense.
At $50 a gallon, and the American taxpayer is not questioning or revolting over this?
Well, it's because, right now the media still largely gives him a pass. You and I haven't forgotten the debacle of Solyndra. We haven't forgotten that all of these green energy companies have failed. CBS's 60 Minutes did an expose on it a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if you saw that, showing how, these political allies of the president have been receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in cash handouts from the U.S. Treasury, paid for by taxpayers to float their green energy companies. That's been going on. You and I know what's going on. Really what happens is, in the midst of all of that, we're fighting the battle again in the media to get coverage of these failed policies. Eventually, though, Zeb, I think the whole house of cards is coming down. We're approaching another debt limit fight. I think that those people who are concerned about fiscal responsibility and limiting spending are going to finally be able to get some leverage on this debt limit so that we don't just continue to give the president a blank check to be able to write out send money to all of his cronies and all the green energy companies around the country. I think that we're going to see some leverage brought to bear in the debt limit fight that comes up. We'll see. This is an election year, and it's going to be a very interesting year. I'm looking forward to hearing what the president has to say tonight. I was talking with a friend this morning over breakfast, and he said, I'm just going to shut it off. It's going to be the same thing that he said last year and the same thing that he said before, and I'm tired of hearing him talk. And I'll confess to you, I'm kind of tired of hearing his soaring rhetoric without any substance, too. But it's going to be very interesting, given the nature of the political climate right now in our country and the fact that there is no more money for him to be able to dole out, how he's going to be able to do this. And what we really think is going to happen, and we've already started to see signs of it, is if the president can't give the money to wind and solar so that they can compete with coal and natural gas and nuclear, then what he's going to have to do is, since he doesn't have the money to give them, he's going to have to use the executive order to cripple the coal and nuclear and natural gas industries so that wind and solar can then compete. And so what we've seen in the last 5 years is the spending of cash. Give them money because they can't make money on their own. Now that there's no more money, what he's going to do, he's going to regulatory handicap these affordable energy sources like coal, nuclear, and natural gas.
Where are the senators? Where are the congressmen of those respective states that need that economic backbone? Where are they, and why aren't they standing up in unison and saying, Mr. President, you have had your best day?
Well, I think they'll all be in one place tonight, that's for sure. They're all going to be gathered in the House chamber listening to the President offer his State of the Union address. And, you know, as always is the case, you want to know how they stand, watch when they stand. And I think we'll see a bunch of, it'll look like a Wimbledon match, I guess. One side will be standing at one point, the other side will be standing at another point. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, the President has not faced a friendly Congress for some time, and either in the House or the Senate. And so he is going into right now with as low poll numbers as he has had, the lowest he's had at any point in his presidency facing Congress. The greatest disapproval, I saw a poll number yesterday that said more than 60% of the American public, 62% of the American public don't trust the president.
That's right.
That is a big hurdle for him to get over. And I really think that the American people are starting to understand, and members of Congress are starting to understand, that what you hear coming from his mouth, don't be so gullible as to believe that the rhetoric is going to actually be conciliatory. It's going to be understanding of America's real economic condition. It's going to be sympathetic with the condition of the American working class. What this is about centralizing power in the administrative bureaucracies. It is the ultimate objective of the progressive agenda. And so look at what he does more than what he says. That's always the case. But tonight I think he's going to have to own up to some things. And if the American people walk away from tonight's speech and they feel like he hasn't recognized publicly the embarrassment of Obamacare, but rather offered platitudes and cover-ups, if they feel like he doesn't recognize how energy policies right now are failing the American people, but doubles down on his failed schemes of the past, Solyndra-style schemes, if he walks away tonight with that, he loses. And his opinion poll numbers continue to plummet, and his ability to actually even get his regulations done. And what you've seen even recently is the courts are now turning on him, too. He just lost a major fight over Obamacare in the courts with the implementation of the birth control mandate. And so he's losing in the courts, he's losing in Congress, he's losing in the public opinion polls. If he stands up tonight and he doesn't just own up to some of these losses, he walks away tonight a loser.
There's a question that goes along with that. Final thought here on this program this morning, Ben. He walks away a loser, but there's other people that are going to be walking with him, and that might be the Democrats seeking re-election in 2014. He looks like, if this speech is nothing more than to cover up the audacities and the negatives of Obamacare, he looks like he could drag a whole bunch of Democrats down the hallway with him this afternoon or this evening, and they will not get reelected.
There are 14 very vulnerable Democratic senators, including a number of open seats. That means control of the United States Senate. I think it'll be interesting. You know, those cameras always catch who applauds and who stands and who sits. And I know that there's a number of Democratic senators and members of the House who are going to be very cautious about how they respond tonight based on what he says, because there's not a single one of them that wants to go back to their state and run on the Obama record.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I'll be watching just as closely as you will.
Real quick thought on energy itself. I know my constituents that listen here, they keep calling all the time, and we here in Idaho are one of the highest paying states for energy in the United States. Do you think we've reached a level off period for a while on price, or are we just looking at a short term, and here in about maybe 60, 90 days come spring, we're going to see all bets off and see this price skyrocket through the roof?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of things that are happening. I know that you have a large dependency on hydropower up there, and that's not quite as volatile as some of the other energy sources. Natural gas prices are going up. There's no question about that. We're at double what we were 2 years ago. The increased price of natural gas is actually good for the coal industry. It means that more coal is going to be used in electricity generation. I think our prices are going up. I think every major economist and every major market analyst sees the price of electricity going up. Fortunately, it looks like, we're continuing to reap the great bountiful blessings of domestic oil and natural gas, which is providing some downward pressure on that upward trending of prices. But we'll have to see what happens. And, of course, we still have the issue of exports that we need to deal with. We're talking about whether or not we'll open up oil exports, whether or not we'll open up more liquefied natural gas export terminals, how all of the global trading of these energy commodities will play out. But I think we definitely see some price squeezing coming in the future. And quite frankly, gas prices have been high for a record 5 years. I mean, they were $1.60 per gallon nationwide when this president took office, and I don't remember the last time we were under $3. So we're still double what the prices were when he came into office, and I don't think there's any anticipation that those prices are going to go back down to a level that will help the American consumer.
Absolutely. Ben, you're the best. Director of Communications for the Institute of Energy Research, Ben Cole. God bless you, my friend. I will be in touch.
See you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely an excellent guest. Ben Cole with the Institute for Energy Research. The speech tonight going to be very, very important. I suggest everybody forget anything else, sit there in front of your television set, because basically what he's going to line out tonight in the State of the Union is how this country is going to be transformed over the next 3 years. Let's not forget our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, my goodness sakes, need tires, huh? Going to be taking a little trip. Got to go to Aunt Maud's up in Billings, Montana, or maybe you got to see Grandma and Grampy down at Farmington, New Mexico. Well, listen, if you're taking a little trip, make sure that you've got the best in winter traction tires on your cars, your SUVs, and your pickups. You check out all the great buys on all the different tires at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. 7 locations to serve you, and service is the key word. They've got all the tires, they've got all the tire chains, they've got the snow wheels, the batteries, the very best in brake service, and don't forget 2 shocks and struts, front end alignments. It's all there. Serving you, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy, the old Seahawk fan on Oberlin and Burley, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Hey, we've got to have a quick Michael Rogers weather update. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers for MichaelRogersWeather.com. Cloudy for today, rain for tomorrow. It's going to be tricky with the rain because of the temperature. So what I'm talking about, basically, if it starts raining and the temperature's like 34, 32, that could be some snow. But right now, with our daytime temperatures being in the 40s and getting there, looks like it's going to be pretty much rain. And all of that's going to be taking place for tomorrow. So all these clouds you see for today, you're going to get it set up for some weather action tomorrow, and you'll come out of it day after tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. MichaelRogersWeather.com. Okay, let's take a quick look at what's on the menu for tomorrow. We've got open forum from 8:06 to 9, and then 9:06, my good old buddy Doug Johnson from Colorado. Then we're going to have the man that's running against, he's challenging Mike Simpson for the congressional post, and that's Brian Smith. Followed at 10:06, we're going to have, I believe, Senator Dean Cameron from the state legislature. And then at 10:30, we're going to have kind of an overview as to what President Obama says tonight on the State of the Union address regarding immigration and immigration reform with a young man, I believe, from back in Washington, D.C. We'll have to confirm that one for tomorrow morning. We urge everybody to listen to the State of the Union message tonight. Don't forget, it's going to start about 7 p.m. our time. Gina, any final thoughts before we clean off the slate for today?
Have a wonderful day and make it 150 feet.
It's going to be more than that, and I've set my record now at 200 per day. And we've got to run to town. I've got to get in my little wheelchair. I got to scoot down the ramp. I've got to jump in my pickup, and my wife's going to drive. We're going to go to town, have a little bite to eat, and run some errands, and then come right back home again.
All righty. Well, you have a wonderful afternoon, sir, and Deanne, drive safe.
With the wheelchair or the car? Please say both.
Both.
Okay. Especially going down the ramp, lady. Don't let her let me go. Okay. God bless everybody. See you tomorrow morning at 8:06. Abbott the Ranch, the way things were, the way things ought to be. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.